Hello, I am Spring Cheng. I'm the co-founder of Resonance Path Institute. I'm very delighted to announce that starting from April, my coworker Angela McLeod and I will be offering a program called Chi Time. Chi Time is 20-minute long sessions of life-nourishing, regenerative practices offered daily from Monday to Thursday all through the month. Chi Time include modalities that Angela and I have cultivated in our own life for decades. They include Qigong, mindfulness, gentle healing touch sourced from holistic medicine, nervous system resilience practice. There will also be movement and dance of simple form or improvised in the present moment. All of these will be held in the context of community and relational building. Chi Time is donation-based and open to all, with videos available for asynchronistic participation. We are living at a time of tremendous change and uncertainty. The social system we build often pressures us to be living primarily from our head and mind and operating from a very restrictive, single-dimensioned rational thinking. Often this rational thinking is limited by a sense of competition and scarcity. As a result, we can get disconnected from our own body, our own heart. And not only that, when we disconnected from our own body and heart, we're also disconnected from the earth as a living being, which provides a vast amount, in fact, infinite amount of life energy. To access this life energy requires us to have an intimate connection with our body and heart. And when we are disconnected, we can be stuck in dysfunctional patterns and shadows that drains and stress us. And our choices and behaviors are more likely to be driven by fear and cravings. Having a regular and persistent practice that nourishes life and regenerate our life energy is crucial in claiming our self-sovereignty and maintaining a sense of responsibility with our own wellness and vitality. For Angela and I, this kind of regular practice has been a foundational pillar in our life. Now we're inviting you to join us and cultivate a practice together with the support of a community, which will amplify the potency of the practice and amplify the connection with the source. In Chi Time, Angela and I prepared a wide spectrum of different modalities. So how do we pick and choose different modality to organize into a practice on a daily basis? How do we balance the structured discipline versus the flexibility of going with the flow? How do we balance exercising control versus the ease of letting go? At a Resonance Path community gathering called Tea Time, Angela and I, facilitated by Joe Shirley, the other co-founder, had a very lively discussion with the wider community. In the rest part of this video, I will share some key portions of that seminar. First, please listen to how Angela described her relationship with her practice.
Practice, I just maybe want to say, what do I mean by practice? What is a practice, a daily practice? And for me, it is something that I consciously have chosen to do on a regular basis, often daily, that really nourishes me on many different levels. For me, right now, it has a lot, it sort of centers around how can I most fully engage all the different aspects of my being. It's like a touching in and a tuning in on a daily basis to come to my own sense of wholeness. Currently, almost every day, I practice Qigong, and I have different ways of practicing that. I do improvisational movement. I do authentic movement where I'm really following just whatever is emerging in my body, in my emotions, in my whole being. I do self-inquiry, somatic inquiry. There's so many different elements. I mainly what I've learned is I dedicate a certain amount of time every day where I'm going to show up, and I have this palette of things that I draw from. And sometimes I need to work on some areas more, or just feel called really to work in my emotional field. Other times it can be something else. Over time, what I've noticed is that it feels really grounding to me to have something that's like the same each time. It's like my starting point. And for me, that's the three treasures practice, the Taoist practice. And I think I will just back up a bit and say that early on, I had these ideas of what a practice should be. So I had concepts of like sitting meditation, traditional sitting meditation, which I could never do on my own, not for more than 5 minutes. And of course, then I felt deficient and like something was wrong with me. But over the years, I came to realize that there's many different ways to meditate, to practice, to tune in, to connect to the deeper source, to align with the bigger source. And so over time, I've experimented with a lot of different activities, and sometimes stayed with something for a while and then let that go as something else became more important to me in my life. I've practiced, I had for a while, what I would call like a buddy, a practice buddy. And this person actually lived in another country. So we never got together except on Zoom, but we were both passionate about spiritual practice and broadly encompassing every aspect of our being. And we both felt like we needed support, to sort of, what is that? How do we do it? How do we stay focused in a practice? And we met together once a week for almost 2 years. And just develop, and that itself was a practice. So we would do a centering meditation together, and then we would each share, what we were doing in our daily practice and what was going well and what we were confused about. So part of our practice was bringing a relational element into discovering what practice was for us. And
yeah, so there's this dynamic between those two that you described, the having the palate and having the confusion about what to choose on the one hand, and then the pressure of having to do it right, right? And I'm wondering, you talked about the making the choice, about from the palate, what do I do right now, and tuning in with your heart's calling. I wonder if you can say a little bit more about, like, how do you do that? Like, what does it feel like? Where's your attention go? How do you know when you're doing it well versus not paying attention to your heart's calling? Is there anything that you can add to that would help some of us sort of know how to do that?
Yeah, well, the first thing that comes up is, do I enjoy it? Like one of the things that really rang true for me when I started to study Qigong and the philosophy of Taoism is, and I felt like I'd never found this in any other path, is that it should be pleasurable. It should feel good, and so that really spoke to me. And that can go down a rabbit hole because, some things that are bad for us can also seem pleasurable, but I'll just let that part go for now. But so just being willing to keep showing up within the practice, whatever, it's almost like I commit to a time, a day that I'm going to show up. And that allowed me to free myself from thinking I had to do X, Y, and Z. And then listening in to what, maybe it's something I did another day and I really liked that. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to start there. And setting the bar really, really low. Like instead of saying, I'm going to do 20 minutes of this kind of practice, etc. Like that's coming from my head. Instead, set the bar really low, like just for 3 minutes, I am going to do that movement that was so delicious. Okay. And then I do it and I find out, how was that? Did that really connect for me? Did that nourish me? And then that may become like, okay, I think I'll do that tomorrow too. And then where does that take me? So it's kind of being willing to let go of, it's like this combination of commitment to showing up, and then also letting go and finding out what my body wants, what my spirit wants. So it's a really interesting dynamic of commitment and letting go of control.
Yeah. Spring, it looks like you've got a lot to contribute along these lines.
I so much enjoy what Angela says. I sometimes feel like there's one voice spoken through both of us. One thing is interesting, the spiritual path is about being here and now and honoring what's present. At the same time, that teaching itself also becomes an impediment in getting there. Right. So that one thing I do constantly is when I notice that I'm striving for something perfection, like if I'm feeling I'm failing myself, I will actually sit down on my couch, which is my self-inquiry place. When I sit down, my puppy will jump on my lap. And I ask myself, what if I fail? What if I am that bad? How did that make me feel? And this is a practice I learned from Joe, is really be present with the feeling and let that feeling to be my medicine. And over time, like I befriend with that shadow part of me that I think the thing is we're such a multidimensional being. We are so way complex and infinite than our mind can grasp. And each practice can allow us to get in touch one aspect of our core. However, I feel often for me, some practice, if we get too stuck in one practice, then that creates a shadow. And then if I become paranoid about not doing it right, that's often a signal that there's too much projection and a shadow has been created. So then I explore the negative feeling, okay, what's the feeling of failing myself? What's the feeling of being imperfect or whatever, as a way to travel into that shadow side and inhabit that. So it's just a deep honoring of what is, even at the time of practice.
So there's one more question I'd like to see if we can address here, which is Joanne's. How do you make it a routine? I'm not at a point where my body compels me to practice. I need to convince my mind to do it, and that's the hard part. And I think this is the other thing I want to connect to is the group, having a group session, being a resource to support that. I love the idea of having a practice buddy, and somebody expressed also believing that would be Lynn, that the sense that would be helpful for her going into tea time. And so anyway, the question of routine and the different ways to support this routine, whatever that might look like. So, Spring, you want to jump in on that?
I think the simplest thing is just say, give yourself 10 minutes a day, or however, 5 minutes, whatever X amount of minutes you feel, and just show up and not to have any expectation of what to do, but just say, okay, this is my 10 minutes. What do I want to do now? It could be one thing you want to do. It could be 10 things. You say, I'm going to try this and that, all 10 things. whatever it is, just fill up, just give yourself that 10 minutes and then notice what works, what not works. I think for me, when I'm a practice, for my practice, I'm both a scientist and artist at the same time. I'm just creating my own palette. There's this palette, and today maybe I just want to use red all the time, or next day I will splash all the colors onto it. But then I also notice what's happening to me, and what will stick. What is something I'm drawn to that feels good, feels pleasurable, and what gives me a sense of vitality and wholeness. Just that, even just have that 10 minutes a day without having any expectation, just to be it as a self-inquiry process. Gradually, you will build your own palette, your own style of practice.
So one thing that I hear a lot in what both of you are speaking about is this meta practice, is the paying attention to how are you making your choices? How are you embodying those choices and doing what you choose? And what are the results that you get from that? And how can you learn from those results to feed into the next cycle, whether that be your next day or the next 5 minutes or the next month? So that relationship of being able to witness your own practice and shape it as you go to feed what most needs fed seems like that's what I'm getting from what you're sharing.